We're 1 week away from what you worked so hard for.
It's NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley.
And don't you let a moment go without thinking about what's there for you to reach out and grasp.
Welcome in to yet another edition of NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley. I'm the aforementioned Jason Dannelly, joining you for this great interview that we've got lined up for tonight. Well, I don't know. The interview subjectee is great. How we handle the interview on our end is going to be a completely different thing. But as we like to do in the offseason, we like to continue to check in on the world of NAIA football. And I'll introduce my co-host right now, that being Pat Donley. Pat, nice to have you back. Good to be talking football. In the last minute, I've already got like so much more energy than what I did the rest of the day as I was schluffing around selling things.
Jason, I'm right there with you. I've been behind this computer all day, not talking to anyone, putting in orders and things of that nature. So I'm so excited to have a conversation with an actual person other than email. And I'm so excited to have our guest on, who I think is one of the very best and a good friend and guy we did battle with for many, many years. And happy to see him back in the NAI, and I think one of the coolest football families that exist. And he's a great storyteller. I'm anxious to ask him questions. Like you said, the subject or the person that's on the show is electric. We gotta match that, Jason. We gotta come with some great questions and get a lot out of this gentleman. So we're excited to have him on.
So let's go ahead and introduce our guest for tonight. He is the head coach of Marian University football, Coach Ted Karras Jr. Coach, thanks for coming on with us, man. It's good to talk to you again.
Good to see you guys. Great to be on your show, and thank you for all you do for NAI football. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, and it takes me all the way back to when you were founding the program at Marian, and then we got to cover a couple of your games when we were out doing that whole tour thing at St. Francis. Actually, it was St. Francis and Marian that we did one of those games, and the times have changed, and I just keep my mentality is NAI football, how it existed in 2003 is still how it is today. So my mind says, oh yeah, Marian, fairly new program. Well, it's a program has been around almost 20 years now. You helped to found it in 2006, won a national championship in 2012. So it has been a wild ride for you as well, especially to come back to Marian. So again, we just appreciate you joining us, Coach.
Good to be here.
Coach, we want to get you on a few weeks ago, but you're at the Super Bowl with your son, Teddy. As he was being honored as the Cincinnati Bengals representative for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, which is so tremendous. And my first question, Coach, getting into it is your unique history in the game of football and your family's history. 3 generations of Big Ten players, 3 generations of NFL players. Can you just tell us and tell the people that may not know the Karras family background in the great sport of football?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my dad and his brothers were, born and raised in Gary, Indiana. They were, sons of a Greek immigrant doctor and a Canadian immigrant nurse. And, things were pretty good for them until at the age of 48, my grandfather passed away. And my grandma had 5 boys and 1 girl to raise. So football was an outlet for them, but also you guys a way to pay for their education. That was the only way they were going to college, and they really gravitated to the sport of football. And they went to Emerson High School in Gary, Indiana, which is no more. But a coach by the name of Art Rolfe was there and really took those, the Karras brothers under their wing, and they excelled. And we weren't the biggest people around, but really excelled at the game. The mental toughness factor, I think, was a big part of it. And we're all linemen too, by the way. So it all started by a need and a want and a desire to attend college, and football was a means to pay for that. And yes, 7 of us played in the Big Ten, 5 in the NFL, with my son now being the 3rd generation, and it's something special. I tell people all the time, football's in my DNA. Some people are from families of, plumbers, electricians, accountants, whatever. I come from a football family. It's been, ever since I can remember. And it's so cool to see my son now, in the NFL, and also to be, still coaching this game that I love.
Well, it's got to be awesome to especially from the family perspective, because Pat and I have talked about this, time and time again when we haven't been on this show, and we always start off asking how the family's doing. How's your daughter? How's your son? He asked about how my daughter is. And it's just got to be cool as a dad, not just throw out the fact you're a football coach and you've been in this. It's got to be cool as a dad to have a son playing in the NFL.
It is really cool. And it was interesting just in my coaching career when I left Marian and went out to Walsh, and then I was out of coaching for a while, right as my son was getting drafted by the New England Patriots. So I went on the Patriot tour. I was out of coaching. I finally got to watch him. I missed a lot of games that when he played at Illinois, you guys, because I was coaching on Saturdays too. But to really, delve into the, Patriot Nation and see what that was all about, and go to some of Bill Belichick practices and live out there for a while, which I did on 2 occasions, just taking it all in, was really fun and really cool to see and to meet all those great Patriots at that time. The Patriots were really rolling too. And yeah, I'm very proud of him. He's done an excellent job. He's bet on himself a few times. He went from the Patriots to the Dolphins, back to the Patriots, now to the Bengals. And the quarterbacks that he's got to snap to, from Brady to Burrow to Garoppolo to Fitzmagic to Tua, just some great guys that he's got to, snap to. And by the way, he also taught himself the center position. He played guard all through college, but the last year he started taking reps at center. And, the fact that he could play all interior 3 spots really helped him carve out what's going on now his 9th year in the NFL.
Coach, can you talk about your experience a little bit, just being around the Patriots? Obviously not giving too many details and too many secrets, because I'm sure that's a pretty tight organization of what you've experienced there. But that's fascinating to me. Obviously, with the new documentary that just came out, on Apple TV, there's some interesting things. Obviously, Teddy was involved in those years. Just kind of curious, just your experience of being around, that organization, and how maybe you can implement some of those things in your program.
Well, I try to pattern myself. Some of the things Bill Belichick does, learning from Teddy and Bill when I used to go out there. But it's a very intense organization. Brown just said today, he's feeling, about going in the facility, feeling good about yourself. You go in the Patriots organization, walk in those doors at 6 a.m., man, you better be ready to go, because they are on you. But no, it was fascinating, man. Bill, demands discipline, coachability, all those things. And, it bode well for the Patriots for many, many years. The last few years, haven't been as great, but that, sometimes happened in football. But it was a great learning experience just to see him in action, see some of the kinds of schemes that they would run, and just meeting a lot of the players was really cool, from Edelman to, to Brady to, who knows, all kinds of guys, which is really great. And then to get to see him go to Miami now, the Bengals, with a different kind of coach, Zach Taylor, it's interesting. I would deem him probably a little more player centric in this day and age. And I use that word a lot with my guys. I'm trying to be a little more player centric, to adapt with the times. I think one thing in coaching you really have to do is improvise and adapt on a daily basis, and adapting to the times and the kids, and not changing everything, but just adapting to some things, to get the most out of your players, I think is really important too. So it's really been cool to, look from the outside in on a lot of professional organizations over the last 9 years.
Well, Coach, and you hit on something in your coaching career that I would imagine has changed a little bit as well. When we go back to when, you started the program and your coaching style then to your coaching style now. It's not too terribly far removed from in 1999 when I still played college football. It was, your coach was your coach. Like, that was the coach. And there wasn't a whole lot of mingling. And then today it's like, hey, you've got to be a lot more player centric. You've got to, be in and care about these guys so that they don't decide that, oh, I'm going to hit the portal and go someplace else or just not play football anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a big thing, but I've always tried to, strike a chord with everyone in my organization, every player, manager, and coach, try to have an atmosphere of, an uplifting type atmosphere where you feel good coming in, to work that day or that afternoon when you come into our realm. And, but yeah, I feel that, I'm a little more measured in what I do sometimes, and more patient probably than I've ever been.
Talk a little bit about from You've been at Marian twice now, and the first time it was ground up build, scraping to get players in, trying to build a roster, trying to instill a culture, and then, leaving the program, being away for, about 10 years and then coming back to it. How has that coaching job changed from being a builder of the program to now, the program's established. Now you got to maintain it.
Yeah, no, that's why I joke a lot. I said to everybody, we created a monster in 2012. We set a standard, and that's the standard. And it's a tough standard, But to answer your question specifically about back then, I love those kind of projects. Those are only jobs I usually got or had a chance to take over, were the down and out programs or a startup where there's no, and that was really, really fun to be able to build that up. By the way, in record time, and we went for 6 years from startup to national champion. I don't think it may have been matched, but that was a record at the time. And that was truly special. But yeah, now coming back 10 years later, it's a little bit like Back to the Future too. And, welcome back, Cotter, where, the names have all changed since you hung around and, there's more sports on campus. There's less parking, which is interesting at times. But what we did with Marian Football is, I feel, gave Marian College, University now, confidence to do some bigger things, I think. And the president was, at the head of that, and he had a vision of where Marian could go. And football is just a little piece, though, to show everyone, hey, not everyone was for football at Marian, by the way. And, when we had our successes, I think it spurred some more bigger thinking, where now we have a medical school, 10 years running now. We just opened up an engineering school, really big projects that, are really key to Marian's longevity, really.
Well, and it's the thing I look at is it elevated where Marian was at nationally, not just in the NAIA, but across all levels. And you look at what other programs have done to have sustained success. I remember going back 15, 20 years ago and looking at Marian. They had a couple decent programs here and there, but, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, all these programs, as a guy that covers everything across the NAIA, I know I can go look at a Marian story and typically see that it's a top 25 team in whatever program that's going to be participating in that sport.
That's been fascinating, that how everyone's up their ante, because there's just kind of that standard that everyone, wants to try to uphold now. And a lot of the sports have picked up their games, and that's at the lead of, athletic director Steve Downing. He expects that now. And it's been really interesting to see and really cool to see, really, all the successes across the board as we have our women's team, in Iowa here competing for another national championship. They have too.
Coach Jason hit on the sustained success situation. It's so challenging, being a part of the NAIA and a pretty good program too myself for the years that we were, and to maintain success, especially in the competitive Mid-States Football Association. Not to give, again, too many secrets away, but, I'm a firm believer the great state of Indiana, for our level of football, has tremendous players, and certainly in the center point of the state in Indianapolis, where you're located, location and the recruiting base there, I know is a huge factor for you, and you're such a great recruiter and members of your staff. Kind of talk about that, the state of Indiana and in the opportunity they have to stay in the great city of Indianapolis to play.
Well, that is a big deal, and we're always going to be strong in Indiana. And by the way, your alma mater and your dad's team really recruited a lot of guys from Indiana this year, and so did we, That's always going to be our base. But, Pat, I tell you what, though, we are opening up, though, nationwide. My first go-around, we had guys from all across the country, too. We had our base in Indiana. We'll continue to do that. But I think one thing is we need to, look around and find the best players available across the nation. And now that we have a little bit more of a name, it's maybe a little bit easier to get them to come to Central Indiana. But, no, Indiana's great football. I grew up here, played for Hobart High School, coached at Andrean. That was my first coaching gig. And we'll always hit the state hard. But we are open to the whole nation.
Coach, I have to go back. You obviously head coach at Marian and then at Walsh, had some time off. And then when you came back to the NAIA, you were at the University of St. Francis coaching there. And I could ask all sorts of questions, but the question I really want to know is, what was it like coaching with that guy?
Wasn't with me. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't? You were gone. So you took his place. I thought there was some crossover time there, but apparently not. Well, you had to deal with him eventually being around there. So, but that had to be a little bit different trip, going back to work for a legendary head coach and being at a great program too.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I'm so grateful to Coach Donley and for taking me in and giving me the opportunity. Coach Sherman, also on the staff that was on mine, and he's a graduate of St. Francis. You know, it was a fascinating, great year, and I don't think probably I would be back in Marian maybe if I didn't take that 110-mile drive up 69, you know, for the spring and fall of 2022 like I did. But Coach Donley was so gracious, and it was so great to learn from him and how he handles people and see their setup. And man, I just had a blast up there, and I'll be forever grateful. It just kind of stinks now. They moved us all both to the west, so now we got to continue to compete against each other. And we did for a long time before that, but it was cool, man, just to see how things work there and how he built that up, and just to hang out, with Coach Donnelly, Coach Ivy, Coach Sherman, all those guys up there. Was just fun, and they really made me feel at home there, and I have nothing but great gratitude for that.
I think you're the type of coach that everywhere you go, when you're with the, kind of watching the Patriots and around that, and then when you've been with your program and other programs, there's probably always a takeaway or a lesson or something. What was a big takeaway that you took from, your short year at St. Francis?
Well, one was Coach Donnelly's ability to motivate a large group of people and get a lot of people organized for a common cause. I think he's a great motivator, obviously a good X and O's guy, but I think he's really a people person. People love him. And that's because of who he is, not just a great football coach, but a great person too. And in his day in and day out, how he is really fun to be around for me. And I love that. I also, took away the setting that, they have there, right there, the football office right underneath the field there, which is pretty cool. The weight room right there. It's kind of a football only area, which I don't experience at Marian University, and many NAIs maybe do or don't. I don't know for sure, but I thought their setup was really excellent. But overall, it was Coach Donley and his motivation and getting people all on the same page for a common cause.
Coach, it's pretty rare as a rival as we were, the way we were before the first time at Marian, and you came to St. Francis and you spent that year, learn all the details of the USF program. No, I'm kidding. We can be I know, you and Dad are close, and it's such a cool thing. And, when you get right down to it, guys, I'll put myself in this category as a former coach, we're all in this thing together. We're all trying to do the best we can and develop young people and make our programs as successful as possible. And you're truly one of the great guys. And, we couldn't be happier to see you, as weird as it sounds, at a rivalry school and have the great coach back at a rival, but so happy for you and your family. And, that you're able to go back to what you started. That's so cool to see. And, it's a weird thing to root for Marian as a St. Francis guy, but certainly other than that one day in October, usually, I think it's in September. Is it earlier this year or is it still in I'm definitely rooting for you, Coach. It's your first class.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I root for the Cougars. Yeah, we're not playing them. It's just we're in the same league again. I couldn't believe it. As if wish they only would have moved one of us over to the West, but it is what it is. But we have maintained a respect, I think, even from when they started, because I remember when your dad and you guys went down to Indiana State. I was at Rose-Hulman, and I never forget watching that game on TV when you guys absolutely trounced Indiana State. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know a lot about the St. Francis Cougars back then, but I was in awe of it. And then to be in the league and to take our lumps very early on, and it took us a few years to get competitive. But like I said, I'll forever remain grateful.
I want to throw a question at both of you guys here because it just kind of popped in my head as you guys were talking about the Mid-States Football Association, the league changing. And when I first, started covering the Mid-States Football Association, Geneva was in it and Gino DeMarco and all that. And it just kind of the change in the league. But, something that's happened here in the last month, I'm sure you guys are aware of, was the passing of Dr. James Howdeshell, who was the longtime commissioner of the Mid-States Football Association. Just go ahead and, share some of your a thought or a memory or something that you have of Dr. Howdeshell, because he was a guy like when I would talk to him, he was passionate about the Mid-States Football Association. And the thing that I think the coaches need to understand is there's a lot of commissioners in the NAIA, and it's kind of, for the greater good of the NAIA. And How to Shell was about the Mid-States Football Association and what's going to be best for my league. I don't care that it's going to benefit some team in California. It's not going to benefit my league, the Mid-States Football Association. And just his passion for the organization when he was with it, it was second to none in the NAIA.
There was, and he had passion, and his meetings were very interesting too. And there were some battles in there also. I remember being in a few with him, but he was always fair and, like you said, always passionate. And it's sorry to see him go.
Yeah, just a true gentleman, like you were saying, Jason. I mean, he was coach, I think, at Findlay. Like, he coached multiple sports. I mean, he's kind of the old school guy, and would have coached, and I'm assuming would have been the 50s probably. Back in that era.
50s
where he coached
and 60s,
50s and 60s, where he coached multiple sports, so he was coach, and just a tremendous administrator. I in my time, coach, and I was fortunate to tag along with Dad to some of those mid-states football meetings. I remember going to one at Marian before you guys started, even when I met you for the first time, and he was organized. I don't think the Mid-States Football Association would have been what it became if it wasn't for him at that time. The growth when you have a program like Findlay Leave back in those days. This is probably ahead of
I remember that.
More information than people probably remember. University of Findlay was a great NAIA power back in those days. Westminster, Pennsylvania, were all those mid-states type teams back in those days. And they left to go to Division II. There was a void. We were fortunate to take Findlay's spot at St. Francis in the Mid-States Football Association. You guys came, was it 7 years after we started, 8 years after we started? So, there were some holes that needed to be filled and some great programs that started. And Dr. Helshell really helped that growth. And, again, first-class individual, and, rest in peace. He was a wonderful man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely was. When we and my dumb NAIA brain just has to say it. Yes, he was head men's basketball coach and head football coach. He stopped being head football coach, and then Stram took over after him, and Stram won all the championships. Of course, that's in this brain. I can't remember. Again, I can't remember, like, when's the wife's birthday? I think it's June 18th, but I can remember that about Jim Haldashell. I don't get it. All right, so we'll get back to actually talking about football. Marian, great season last year. You got into the postseason, maybe not as deep as you wanted to. You've graduated some really talented players. What's the spring looking like? What's spring ball going for you right now? And how's the recruiting trail been, Coach?
So let's start recruiting. Good class, probably a little bit bigger than they wanted, but we got about 45 with 5 transfers included. So we're going to probably be around 160 when we report in August, a little bit more than I'd like. But it's really my first full-fledged year and our new staff's full-fledged year recruiting. So we're really happy with the class. So I thought that was successful. This spring ball, we have some big, voids to fill. Nate Fry, conference player of the year, All-American. Bucher's leaving. More on defense probably than offense. We have a lot more coming back on offense, but we did lose Zach Bundelow, all-time leading passer, Jalen Jennings. So my thrust for this past winter and spring is, one, to continue to come together as a team, which I think we're doing that, but also to play a lot of young guys and to see some of these guys that haven't necessarily played on Saturday afternoons for Marian University that need, that are going to, and really, we have a good core of guys that are coming back, but also to really get some young guys more reps. My big thing I've been saying, we're going on practice number 6 tomorrow. It's going to be a scrimmage, so we're end of week 2, but really get everyone on film. And we're covering everything, offense, defense, special teams, and we're making it competitive. And tomorrow's going to be a fully padded, live day, except for the quarterbacks, and we're going to get after it a little bit, because I really believe, to learn this game and to play this game properly, you have to do some live action. And we're doing it tomorrow and getting after it. But everyone's getting on film and everyone's getting reps this spring. That's a big one for me, because we have some talented young guys that haven't, played it down on Saturday afternoons in the fall yet. So we got to see who really can. And we have some young guys that I think can step up.
Coach, you said week 2 that you're in. I mean, how long are you going to go? Is your philosophy to have a longer, spring session and get more reps that way, spread things out? Do you want to, kind of jam pack it in and get done and get ready for spring recruiting?
Great question, Pat. So I try to improvise and adapt. So last year I went on Saturdays, and I'm not going on Saturdays except for the spring game this year. Easter in there, so it's a 5-week period. So it's about, we started right when we got back from spring break, which I didn't do last year. started right away. We'll get done a week earlier. We'll get done on April 13th. So within 5 weeks, we'll get our 15 practices in our spring game. But I did change that up from last year, where we went mostly on Saturdays, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. Like this week was a Monday, Tuesday, today meetings, and then Thursday, and then meetings Friday, and then weekend off. It seems to be pretty. I know some of the coaches' wives are really happy with the schedule they've told me. So, I'm trying to improvise and adapt. It is spring. A big thing with me in spring is, experiment on some things, have some fun, and get everyone on film and try to develop the guys the best you can in this, 4 to 5 week period.
You mentioned having 160 potentially on roster coming into the fall. When you got into the head coaching business, did you ever think there'd be a day that you'd have a roster that you'd be exceeding 110, 120? I mean, it's commonplace now in the NAIA to have 140, 150, 160 JV programs, lots of kids running through red shirts and all that. Did you ever think you'd see that day happen?
No, probably not. But I did study Kevin Donnelly up north and what you guys used to do and still do, and recruit a little bit more numbers, and it's bode well for both programs. But I just think our sweet spot's more around 125, to 130. But sometimes coming in new and getting some of the guys that you're recruiting in is important. So we'll see how it goes. I went through a period at my first go around in Marian after the 09 season. We had to part ways with quite a few guys just on the fact that they weren't team guys and you couldn't keep everyone happy, and it was just that group. And after we made those cuts after 09, we really blossomed as a team. 10, 11, and 12 took off. So we'll see what happens this year. I think the guys in this era are pretty nice guys and pretty team-oriented, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But no, to answer your question, I never thought it had that big of a squad.
That kind of led me to my next question, Coach. Talk about your guys now. You said you've got some, obviously, youth in spots after losing some great players. And we know the standard of Marian that you started the program, many years ago, and where you came back to, that national championship is the standard there and competing for it every single year. We know that. How do you feel like this group has blossomed and developed in your time there, and where can they get to, you think, this season?
Well, the sky's the limit for the group if we continue to come together as a team, if we improve, and also can last the duration of a long season. I use the word fizzler sometimes. Sometimes you get to a certain point, it's Thanksgiving, you have to have the same energy throughout, and the hunger factor too. So that's going to be a challenge that I want to make sure we get done this year. We have a good group of seniors coming back. We have a pretty big senior class, especially offensively. Our whole line's back, led by Zach Cibula, really good player. Drew Byerly, tight end. We're going to have a new quarterback. They're in a quarterback battle right now, but the strength is going to be our offensive line and our tight end spot. And then defensively, a lot of new faces, but Jay Sean Underwood's been, a stalwart captain for us. Deion Pettiford, stalwart captain for us. We have some good young guys coming up, some transfers that have come in. We'll see how that goes. And I think our special teams will be solid. Mason Miller as a punter. We're going to use him as a weapon. And we have our kicker back too, but football's a what have you done for me lately business and a yearly proposition. So we are, really focused this year on developing guys, and, like you guys said, like I said earlier, national championship is the standard. So we got to come in but you can't be focused on just the end result. Day in and day out, come in, go ready to work, have a good demeanor about you, be coachable. As coaches, we better be upbeat and positive, every day.
Coach, last season, and this hopefully is, the wound is, healed up a little bit on this one, I think, but it's still going to hurt. But as a NAIA football fan and as a college football fan, probably the best football game I saw all of last fall was Indiana Wesleyan Marian. I watched that thing, tail to tape. I went back, rewatched parts of it. That was an awesome game. It didn't work out in your favor. Have you had any chance to kind of step back from that one and say, well, that was a pretty good game, or does it just still just burn?
That one doesn't burn as much as losing the playoffs to St. Xavier. I'll say that.
Good point. Good point.
You had that's the one that, that came back. It's hard to beat teams twice, but still, though, it was a tight game. The first one we lost to Xavier. Went to Wesleyan. Last time Marian went to Wesleyan, it was a Donnybrook. So, I thought that we competed and fought to the end. That's my big thing. You compete and fight to the end, I can't be that mad about anything. So to answer your question, no, not really that game, but the last game, yeah, because I think we left some things out there, and offensively, it was an abysmal performance, especially early on, and and that ended our season. So that's kind of the fuel that I think fires us up more than that wasn't game.
And looking at that game against, St. Xavier, again, not to, go through all the old stuff here, but Pat and I do remember talking about that game. It seemed like they changed some things up a little bit defensively for you, caused some different reads that you had to make on the offensive line. And they were in your backfield a lot in that game.
Yeah, way too much. And I think, as an offense, we have to be able to do some things during the course of the game and adjust so that isn't happening. They dominated us at first, I thought first half. And then we didn't capitalize on some things that we could have also. But I think adjustment-wise, we could have done a better job for sure.
Coach, we can't thank you enough for your time. And I know you're busy with spring practice. I'm sure you've watched film already. You're going to watch more tonight and get ready for your big day tomorrow. But again, just thank you so much. Can't thank you enough. And it's just awesome to talk to you and the stories, and love hearing the family history and where Teddy is now, and can't root for him anymore, and the Cincinnati Bengals, and looking forward to this football season to see your program and Teddy on Sundays.
Well, we appreciate that, you guys. Thanks for having me on, and I'll be on anytime. Love talking with you.
Awesome, Coach. I appreciate you coming on. For Pat Donley, I'm Jason Dannelly. This has been NAIA Football with Dannelly and Donley on the Victory Sports Network.